share with you what I think occurred in those early morning hours after the murders happened. Now, as I'm sure most of you know, there were 2 roommates who survived the attacks.
What's up, guys? True Crime King back. How we doing? Hope you all are doing well. Alright, so with this video, I'm going to be reacting to what's called Why Dylan Mortensen, DM, one of the surviving roommates who was in the next room, literally right next to Ethan and Xana. It's called Why Didn't She Call 911+View inside the house. So let's see why he didn't think she didn't call 911, because I'm still suspicious, right? And yeah, let's see what views he's got from inside his house. So here we go.
Bethany and Dylan. Now, one roommate in particular has been the subject of a lot of discussion recently because it's presumed that she may have heard the attacks happening and even saw the suspect fleeing the house. But
yeah, she had to have heard everything. I mean, that's ridiculous. And she told us herself that she made eye contact with Brian.
yet we didn't have a 911 call until 11:58 a.m.
Yeah.
So that's just about 7.5 hours from the end of the murders until 911 was called. So this unknown that we have of what occurred between 4:25 and 11:58 has kind of evolved into all sorts of different theories about Dylan and her involvement in the case.
Yeah, that's just too much time. I'm sorry, but it is. Right? I mean, come on. Think about it.
Anywhere from she's involved in drug sales, or she was hiding drug evidence in the house after the murders occurred. I've even heard that she may have known Brian and was selling drugs to him. I've heard a rumor that she may have hired a hitman to attack one of the victims because she wanted to get revenge or had some personal vendetta against one of them, which I don't think it would be the case considering everything we know about their relationships.
Yeah, before we get too far into it, put your comments down there now what you think Dylan's involvement is, if any. And then we'll see if you believe that at the end still.
I've heard the angle of it being a revenge for hazing in some way, but there's really been a lot of different things out there flying around about Dylan, and not as much really about Bethany, the other surviving roommate, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I really think that's an important part of this whole puzzle, is remembering that there is another person there who was a close witness. Now, I do think that...
I guess, well, real quick. So Bethany, was on the first floor. So if she really was on the first floor, which we have no reason to believe she wasn't, right? That's a big difference from being on the same floor as, Ethan and Xana. And it's a big difference as in you didn't make contact, eye contact and actually see the person. And the killer didn't have to pass your bedroom twice, once going up the stairs and once going down the stairs, right? He wouldn't have passed her bedroom at all. So, she has a much more believable story than Dylan.
Most likely Bethany slept through the attacks and didn't really hear as much as what Dylan heard. But I think that when she did wake up that morning, she played a very important part in how things unfolded that morning once they realized what was happening in the house. I'm going to focus mostly on Dylan for this video because this is the person who's been being talked about the most, so I want to address this part of the case, but I think this does tie into the other roommate, Bethany, as well. What I can tell based off of all of that social media that's out there of pictures of her with Kaylee and Maddie, it seems to me like they were all pretty good friends and pretty close. There's really nothing out there to show that she would have had any personal issue with anybody in the house.
Yeah, but we know when girls, you guys are taking pictures, of course you're gonna act all friendly and smiley. But we don't know what really is going on behind the scenes, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, there's often little grudges and stuff that's going on that only like the inner circle people would know, right?
Any theory out there about Dylan being involved in the actual murders, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm going to move past that thought pretty quick and focus more on the drug angle that's being discussed. Kaylee's family.
I guess it doesn't make any sense at all to him right now because there's no evidence saying that Dylan had any involvement whatsoever, but we don't know everything yet, right? And there's definitely more stuff coming out, like might have had an accomplice, and so a long way to go with this whole Koberger case.
And their attorney has also been supportive to Dylan. I think part of why Kaylee's family's attorney wants the gag order released is so that they can help dispel these rumors that are going around about what happened between 4:30 and 11:58. I think there is more information about that time frame that they're keeping close and they're not releasing.
Yeah, I mean, we all the public knows right now is that the four girls got killed. Dylan had a room on the same floor, and Bethany lived on the floor below. They survived, and then nobody called the police for what, almost 12 hours. So that's all we know. Okay? If someone gave us a better explanation as to why the police weren't called or something like that, then yeah, people aren't gonna wonder as much, and you can put a lot of this shit to rest.
And that could be frustrating some of the families, and they want things to kind of quiet down so that they can focus on the next phase of the trial that's coming up in June. So, like I said, I personally don't think that Dylan or Bethany are involved in the attacks on the victims in any way. Law enforcement has also ruled them out, and they know a lot more than we do, and they've known a lot more for a long time. So, I think if there was anything there that would show an involvement with them and the murders, it would have been uncovered by now.
Well, I don't know. The police. There's always stuff that could be uncovered with the help of a tip or an accomplice or an informant, which we know an informant is apparently, snitching on Brian now. So, I'm gonna wait until the end because for all I know is Dylan could have helped him or Bethany. So just because the police haven't said anything about that yet, that doesn't mean that they had no part, right? They could just be waiting for more evidence. But yeah, until you know the trial's done with, I'm gonna withhold judgment on them. Yeah.
So that kind of leaves us with the other angle of, okay, maybe there was a different reason other than that. Like if maybe Dylan was hiding drug evidence, or if there was drug sales going on from the house, it may have had something to do with that. I mean, it would take a smoking gun in order to connect her to the actual murders. So if you're going to think that she's involved in any kind of cover up, most likely I think that you would be leaning on the idea that it had something to do with drugs.
Now, I think there was definitely drugs being sold out of that house. I mean, how much or how often, I don't know about that, but you can probably safely bet that at one point in time there was drugs sold out of that house.
So I've done my best to try to find a connection on drug sales from the house, and I haven't had much luck with that. Now, I have come across some people who have told me that they personally are aware of drugs being sold from the house. Now, I do think that that's possible, that there could be an occasional transfer of drugs when you're talking about frat and sorority houses and a college environment. Everybody knows that people at that age are experimenting. I think that is a big difference, though, from a house being kind of what you would call a drug house, right? So there's certain things that you would expect to see in that type of a house, which I couldn't uncover. And keep in mind, there's a lot of social media footage out there of inside the house, of all of these girls hanging out, photos, and really nowhere are you seeing any kind of glamorization of drugs or in the background anybody who appears to be using drugs.
Yeah, well, I mean, nobody is gonna put, they're using drugs on camera unless you're, in the hood trying to act like you're a gangster, cooking cocaine, right? Yeah, but yeah, that no one's gonna self snitch on themselves by, you know, having them snorting cocaine on camera and shit, unless you're really stupid. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I still think they're doing some kind of drugs. But yeah, I mean, he's right though. That's a big difference from being a fucking uh, trap house where the dudes just sit there all day and make drugs and sell drugs. That's not what this house was. It was just a party house that had people using drugs in there and, you know, probably buying some drugs just a little here and there, but nothing major like that.
Everything looks pretty normal as far as it being kind of a party frat house. The other thing I kind of thought about when I heard somebody talking about possible sales from the house is there's a vacant room in the home. So there could definitely have been somebody else in the home prior who maybe had more involvement with that. Realistically, there's certain things you would expect to see in the background or hear about in regards to that kind of thing going on.
Yeah, there was a vacant room, but from my understanding, it was just a really, really small bedroom that nobody wanted to be in, and it was like almost too small to be a bedroom. That's why no one was in it. So, yeah, to my understanding, there was nobody in that room at all.
In an excessive way in a sorority house. Drug sales in this type of environment are typically a smaller circle of people, kind of a word of mouth, a friend hooking up a friend, hooking up a friend, and it kind of makes its way through that circle. But very rarely do you see a house like this that's actually dealing out drugs on a regular basis. And if we're going to say Dylan would have been involved in that, she's kind of the newbie here in the house, finding her way here as a college student, looking up to these other girls. It just doesn't fit to me that she would be somebody who is regularly dealing out of this house, other than what you would just hear about in a normal college town environment. And don't forget, we have to keep that connection of there are two roommates involved here. So if one roommate is in this kind of lifestyle and took this time to cover things up, the other roommate would most likely be aware of that. So you're really having to kind of tie both of them in on any type of.
Well, again, that's not true. I mean, these roommates lived on different floors of the house, right? I mean, so let's say Bethany's downstairs. She might not even talk to Dylan that much, right? I mean, does anybody really know if they were like that good of friends? Because I haven't heard anything online saying that Dylan and Bethany were actually like good friends. Yeah, I mean, they shared the same house, but so did all these other people, right?
Cover up that may have happened. The odds of two young women like this being involved in a cover up like that would be very, very rare. Think about that. They would have to be conscious of what just happened in the house and the fact that there were four bodies lying in their bedrooms, and despite that would have taken this time to somehow thought that covering up the drug use was more important, that they would be in this mind state that they would get in trouble because of the drugs when the homicide detectives showed up. Now, I don't know how many of you have been around that type of environment. I can tell you, though, that there is a very distinguishable smell in situations where you have a large amount of blood present.
Yeah, so if they were afraid of calling 911 earlier because they wanted to get rid of the drugs, first of all, they're not gonna have that much drugs, right? I mean, they're not gonna have kilos of coke laying around, right? So they're only gonna have little tiny bags. So they could just flush them down the toilet. I mean, that would take a minute, right? I mean, yeah. I still have no idea why they waited so long.
And based off of the description of what happened in that house, I'm pretty confident that those girls would have smelled a very uncomfortable smell during that time period of cleaning up. Now, if you have two people who just witnessed this happen to their friends, and if they could keep themselves together in order to clean up all of these things and do some sort of cover up here, I don't know. I don't know how many people out there could actually tell themselves and be honest that you would be able to handle that and do that in that type of situation. So I am in the camp that I don't think Dylan or Bethany were involved in the murders in any way. And
Yeah, I want to go on record. I'll say that I don't think that they were involved. I don't think that as of right now. But I'm not gonna sit here and say I know that they weren't. You know, they could have been involved, right? So yeah, I'm not accusing them of being in on it or having a hand in anything, but I'm not ruling them totally out yet either, as as he's doing.
and I don't think they were involved in any type of cover up. I'm going to show you now what I do think happened in those early hours after the murders occurred, and a lot of it.
Now maybe once we get the 911, then I'll say, okay, but we don't have all the evidence, so how could I possibly say there's no way?
Has to do with what Dylan would have witnessed, and I'm going to show you that from her perspective, peering out her door in the middle of the night. Now, really quick, I do want to show you Bethany's bedroom is right here if you're looking at this from the front of the house. And then if we look at the floor plan here, Bethany's room would be here on the right. Now this would be directly below the living room, which is on the second floor. So you can see here where you would come in the front door, immediately turn left and go upstairs to the living room. But if you come in and go down that hallway, that would lead you to where Bethany's room was. So she would have been on the opposite side of the house from where Ethan and Xana were. Here's a view of the stairs that lead up to the living room and the hallway that leads to Bethany's bedroom. Now this is the first floor of the house, and you can see here on the left.
Okay, but he's having is as if Brian entered through the front door, right? We're all assuming that he entered, or at least I think he entered from the back slider where he exited from, not this front door.
Is the front door that leads into the home. Now here's a view of the living room on the second floor, and down that hallway where you see that open door would be Ethan and Xana's room, and that's where they were discovered. Ethan and Xana's room was a very small room overall. Now this door right here near the staircase would be Dylan's bedroom door, so she's just opposite of the wall from the living room here. So again, Ethan and Xana's room over here on the right, and then the hallway here that goes up the stairs, you can see Dylan's bedroom door right there.
Okay, look how, so he had to have gone that close to Dylan's room, up these stairs, and wants to go up and wants to come down. And over here, there's the kitchen and the slider. Is where you go out, okay? So, yeah. That just doesn't make sense. She heard him walk up these stairs, and Yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy.
Now let's take a look at how this would look at night in the dark. So this right here would have been what Brian would have seen as he was making his escape.
Okay. Now this is not. Who knows if they had different lights and shit in there? Who knows? And if this back slider didn't have, you know, a big heavy curtain over it, there's gonna be some light coming in through there, which would light this up a little bit more. I mean, if Brian couldn't see his way, how the fuck is he gonna make it? Upstairs especially with his visual snow, right? Which he didn't have any restrictions on his driver's license, as I said in the video before. So if it was really like this, plus his visual snow, then how did he commit the murders? I mean, let's see.
Toward the kitchen back door when Dylan would have been peering out of her doorway at him as he crossed through this threshold. I believe Dylan was still in her room and just had her door slightly open when she saw Brian pass by.
But remember though, we don't know if it really looked like this.
Now this view right here would be what Dylan was actually looking at as she peered out her door and saw Brian coming toward her. I think that she probably had that door slightly cracked and was looking out, and as he came by, she stayed as still as she could so that he wouldn't notice her, hoping that he would pass by, rather than alerting him by slamming her door and attempting to lock it. And now here's a view of what it would have looked like to Dylan in the light as Brian came around the corner where...
Okay, but yeah. Okay, so he had to have been somewhere right here because Dylan said they made eye contact, right? As he was leaving. So that's pretty fucking close, right? I mean, I guess Brian could, he could have thought, well, but all she has to do is shut her door, and then I can't get to her, and then, so he probably just said, fuck it, and walked out. I'm assuming.
This red arrow is from Ethan and Xana. I think this view really puts in perspective how close Dylan was to these attacks, and I am pretty confident that Dylan heard what was happening to Ethan.
That's what I'm saying. You just saw how her bedroom's right in the middle of everything. That's, I don't know, man. She had to have heard everything.
And Xana, and was more aware of what was occurring, and this really factors into why she reacted the way she did after the crimes. And if we look down here on the floor, we can see where the alleged footprint was found as the suspect was fleeing the house. Now this is a view of the inside of Dylan's bedroom. You can see there where the door would have been that she would have been peering out of and would have had to have locked quickly. This is her window that would lead to the back side of the house where that tree line is. And this is a view of what she would have been seeing once again as she was peering out her door and seeing Brian pass by while he was escaping after encountering.
I guess Dylan's eyes would have been more adjusted to the dark, though, than Brian's, if she really was in this dark. So she would be able to see better in the dark for a little bit. But, again, I think she was, or it wasn't this dark. I'm sure she had her phone. Yeah.
Ethan and Xana in their bedroom just around this corner. Everybody, I think Dylan heard what happened, and I think she started going into a state of severe traumatic shock. There are multiple doctors out there that have written and talk about what happens to somebody when they experience.
Yeah, but let's face it, you could find a doctor to fit whatever, narrative you're trying to come up with. There's doctors out there that have opinion on everything, right? So you could find a doctor that would say a different thing about the same subject, okay? But I just thought you guys would find that fascinating. You know, little look inside the house there. And yeah, put down in the comments what you think. You know, if you think Dylan has any involvement, or who, if anybody had any more involvement. And yeah, if you liked it, hit the like button. If you didn't, don't hit the like button. But until next time, guys, True Crime King out.